Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. It's me, Jonathan Voico. And today, we're a little bit different. We're all remote from our studio. We've got the one and only Robert Meyer Burnett is here.
On Monday, this Memorial Day, shout out to all of our men and women in uniform, saving the world, wherever they may be.
Yeah, welcome, Rob. And also, on the road, we've got Mr. John Campea.
How you doing, guys? I am coming to you live from a van down by the river in Washington, Pennsylvania. We, of course, are on the road doing the next leg of the movie meetup tour. We're doing Columbus, New York, Boston, and Toronto on this leg. And last night was the first stop. We were in Columbus, Ohio. And I've never been to Columbus, Ohio. And we had an awesome movie meetup there. I think Jonathan's got a picture of it there.
Yeah. Right there.
Thank you. That's the turnout last night. It was an amazing group of people in to watch a not great projection. We were at the Marcus Crossroads Theater, wonderful little movie theater, but the projector was pretty dim and the colors were all washed out and everything. It wasn't the best projection, but wonderful little theater nonetheless. And just a big thank you to everybody in Columbus. We had people there who drove a couple of hours from Cincinnati or Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
We had some people drive down from Detroit. We had people, one person said they drove in from 8 hours away. Anyway, it was a wonderful time last night. So thank you to everybody. And we're looking forward to going to the next stop in our movie meetup tour, which is of course tomorrow night in New York at the AMC Roosevelt Field 8. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody there. And it's going to be a good time. So, all right, guys, with that all down, we've got a number of things to talk about here today, and we're going to start things off with this. Well, in the movie that kind of inspired everybody to try their own personal fake Scottish accents, Shrek, of course, beloved movie franchise, particularly of one, shall not be named former assistant of mine who is completely obsessed. Shout out to Taylor. Obsessed with Shrek. Well, look, the last Puss in Boots movie came out and it was fabulous. The one where he's, running out of his 9 lives. I forget the name of it, but it was wonderful. And at the end of it, he's in a little rowboat saying, "I'm going to go see some friends." That's the best Antonio Banderas you're ever going to hear.
That wasn't that bad, honestly.
It was like he was in the room.
Yeah.
So it ends with Antonio Banderas saying, "We're going to go see some friends." And the camera pans out and it shows that he's heading towards the shores of Far, Far Away, which is, of course, where Shrek lives. And the whole audience went nuts, like crazy. And ever since that moment, I knew they were going to do a Shrek 5. So, of course, Shrek 5 is coming. It's coming next year. I think it's about 13 months out now. But guess what? It now looks, at least according to Dana Carvey and maybe Mike Myers, that they're already getting ready to do Shrek 6. According to a report in CBR, it says this: in a recent episode of his Fly on the Wall podcast, Dana Carvey, a former co-star and good friend of Mike Myers, revealed that he spoke to the actor Mike Myers about the future of the Shrek franchise. Carvey relayed that Myers told him that we're doing 2 more films after Shrek 5, hinting that there are plenty more adventures ahead for the beloved fantasy franchise. All right, so let's put the 7th one on hold for a second, because Mike Myers can say they're planning 2 more. They're probably going to want to see how this one does. But I have no doubt that they are already talking about planning 2 more. Then the 6th one is probably already in early stages of development. Like, they have to at least be writing it at this point. And here's the thing, guys. When you're talking about a franchise like Shrek that has been sitting on the shelf for, 48 years, however long it's been since the last Shrek film that we had, I would probably say it might behoove you to wait before planning a 6th one to see how the 5th one does. Is the audience still going to be there for it? Is a Shrek fandom still out there big enough to sustain like a blockbuster franchising? And so normally I would say, don't get ahead of yourself and start planning 6 yet. But Rob, I will say this: if there's any franchise I think you can do that with, it's Shrek.
Yeah.
I think they could have come in. I think it's good that they took a little bit of a break from Shrek, but I think you can almost come out with a new Shrek film anytime. And when I saw the love and the passion that people had when that last little scene in Puss in Boots happened, and when you saw the response that got out there when it was made official that they were indeed doing Shrek 5, to me, I'm saying, yeah, green light 6 right now. Go ahead. Now, it should be mentioned here that Dana Carvey is saying Mike Myers told him this. This is, of course, hearsay, but it tracks. And I would 100% believe that the studio's already making the 6th one. And I 100% believe it's a good idea because I believe Shrek 5, while not necessarily a $1 billion film, I think Shrek 5 has the potential to be a $1 billion film. I'd be surprised if it made under 700 million. Now, of course, that all depends on how good or bad Shrek 5 ends up being. But I think it's got the potential to be one of those $1 billion films. I say you move ahead with 6 right now. I don't see a problem with this. Rob, what do you think about it?
Oh, I totally agree with you. Like, I've never understood, like, when The Matrix was very successful, they did make The Matrix 2 and 3. But I don't think they had enough time to really develop the stories as well as they could have. But I think seeing what Peter Jackson did with the Lord of the Rings movies, obviously they had the original novels, but I've never understood why when you have a very successful franchise property, why they make one and then wait, and then 3 years later or whatever, they'll make another one. I would think, why not always have successful franchises in various states of development where you keep the team going? And if it's successful, I mean, keep it going. And look, do I appreciate Toy Story 5? Looks great to me. Do I think that they should just keep making Toy Story movies? Well, as long as they can we're going to get the 5th movie in a franchise that's also it looks to be great. The premise is great. Toys versus technology. That is a genius idea. And with the Shrek franchise, who doesn't love Shrek? Like you said, I think that franchise would survive if there was one every year, and if it was good, people would go.
Yeah. By the way, as a side note, they played a new Toy Story 5 trailer last night in our theater in front of Mandalorian, and the audience loved it.
Yeah.
Like the audience, and I got to tell you, I'm not saying that this Toy Story is going to be as good as Toy Story 3. I think most of us agree Toy Story 3 is probably like the gold standard of the Toy Story films. But I mean, on its surface, it looks just as good. I mean, I think it really looks great. Now, going into number 5, somebody in the live chat was asking, should we consider Shrek a failure if it only makes 500 million? No, if Shrek makes 500 million, it's going to be a profitable film and probably in the top 10% of the highest grossing films of the year. So even if it makes 500, it'll be fine. I'm just saying I'll be a little bit surprised if it makes under 700.
Right.
I just think it's going to do that well. And I think the hunger is going to be there for it. I think they've waited a long time to meet this film, as long as they don't completely crap the bed. And if the last Puss in Boots is any indication, they're still firing on all cylinders, because that last movie was great.
Totally.
And so I think the hunger is there, and I think the audience will be there. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? According to Dana Carvey, Mike Myers has said they're already working on 2 more films. Eddie Murphy even at one point kind of hinted that they might be doing a Donkey spinoff. Anyway, whatever you think about all that, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about this. Something has just happened at the worldwide box office that I don't recall ever seeing before in my life. According to some reports, it's only happened once before this century. I haven't had a chance to double check those figures, but I do know that I can't remember the last time I've ever seen something like this. We are accustomed to seeing a movie that opens on week 1, then go into week 2, and take a customary 50 to 60% drop. Anything less than a 50% drop is considered great. Anything more than a 60% drop is considered worrisome. So generally speaking, you see them drop between 50 and 60%. The new horror film Obsession, which I remember we were one of the first groups of people that saw the first trailer for it. I remember when that first trailer came out, I said, okay, I am fascinated by this. I think this looks great. Now, in one of those weird circumstances of scheduling, I still haven't seen the movie. You know, I was completely booked the weekend it came out, and then I've been on the road in a van for the last 5 days traveling out here. I still haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to go see it tomorrow. I'm going to go see Obsession tomorrow. But how can you not, even if I can't speak to the quality of the film. I've just heard a lot of people say they love it. Rob, I know you liked it. You saw the film, you liked it. But that's not what we're here to talk about right now. The movie Obsession this weekend, in its second weekend, made $22.4 million. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, The Mandalorian made 80-something million dollars, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But in its second weekend, Obsession made $22.4 million. So what's this earth-shattering, groundbreaking statistic that I've never seen before in my life? Well, see, the thing is, you got to remember that the movie opened in its first weekend with $17.1 million. $17.1 million. That means that Obsession, with only adding 40 new theaters, not 400 new theaters, not 1,000 new theaters, it only added 40 more theaters. The box office, remember, anything less than a 50% drop is considered fantastic. The box office for Obsession went up 30.3%. Let me say that again. Without opening in just 100 theaters and then expanding to 1,500 theaters. No. Same amount of theaters, just 40 theaters difference, is now open in 2,655 theaters. Only a 40 theater difference. The box office went up from week 1 to week 2, 30.3%. Now, we have seen, of course, movies take jumps like this, but almost every time we've seen that sort of a jump happen, it's been because it was in a limited rollout, and then the week comes where it is expanded full theatrical. You know, it opens in 75 theaters, and then next week it rolls out to 1,800 theaters. Sure, yeah, then you see those jumps, yes. But without a significant change in theater count, Rob, again, I have not done deep research on this. I'm only talking off the top of my head here. I cannot remember ever in my lifetime. I'm not saying it's never happened. There are some outlets saying it's happened once in the last century. I'm just saying I can't recall this ever happening before. Now, to keep this in perspective, okay, let's not make this out to be something that it's not, okay? In the grand scheme of things, Obsession has still made worldwide complete total after 2 weekends in the theater, $79 million. Okay. Just to put it into perspective, that is less money than The Mandalorian and Grogu just made in the US on its opening weekend. So I'm not sitting here saying this is the biggest film of all time. It's not by a long shot. It's not even remotely in the whiff of the conversation. But for a film that cost roughly $1 million to make, and they have an opening weekend of $17 million, that's noteworthy. For it to then go up 30% in its second week to $22 million on its second weekend, Rob, that tells us two things.
Poor
thing number
Passenger.
A Poor Passenger, which, by the way, I've heard is quite good.
I liked it.
It's been completely overshadowed. But it tells us two things about Obsession. Number one, their plan, because I was talking to somebody about this a few days ago, their plan to kind of re-up the marketing campaign. Most marketing campaigns for movies kind of peter out after opening weekend, right? They still keep going, but they peter them out. They decided not to do that with Obsession. They kept the pressure on with the marketing campaign, and the marketing campaign has been incredibly effective. That's the first thing it tells us. But the second thing it tells us is this. People who saw Obsession in the first week are not only going back 2 or 3 times, they're dragging other people along with them. And the word of mouth of this thing has been so positive. Like, when's the last time it's happened? But when's the last time, Rob, that a little low budget horror film, a little spunky engine that could, has instantly got people talking Oscars. Like there's some whispers going around for Oscar consideration at this point. So the marketing campaign, chef's kiss. It's been fantastic. But more importantly than that has been the word of mouth of the people who saw it in weekend one to see this. Now, to put that into perspective, if Mandalorian and Grogu has this same performance, then next weekend Mandalorian and Grogu would make like $110 million on this weekend, which
oh, they love that.
I'm gonna play Nostradamus here and go out on a limb and say that's not going to happen.
Well, but you
Rob,
are doing the movie meetups, so you could bump it.
Which, by the way, when we talk about the Mandalorian box office a little bit later, I am responsible for about 20% of it. But Rob, you saw this number. This is nothing. This is historic, and I do not use that word as hyperbole here. This is a historic number that we're seeing here for this little horror film that could. But anyway, you saw the movie too. Are you surprised by these results? What do you attribute them to, and what's standing out to you?
Well, you know, I was doing a show on my channel last night, and a viewer wrote in a letter, Cameron, and was talking about this movie specifically because I had done a show. I was kind of critical of the lore of the film, but he pointed out that you have we talk about how the Gen Z movie-going audience has become very vital, very vibrant. This is truly a Gen Z zeitgeist film. And I think that, as it was explained to me last night by a 27-year-old, that this film really speaks to what it's like to date, you know, if you're Gen Z in your 20s and that minefield. And I think what this movie does, you know, it's a YouTuber, Curry Barker's who made the film, cut his teeth on YouTube, but he's made a film that really captures a moment in time. And you have this incredible central performance and a movie that truly delivers the goods. And it does everything great low budget horror does. And I think I hark back to hearing when I was a kid, movies like Halloween would come out or Nightmare on Elm Street, and everybody would have to run out and see them. And this is it's been a long time since you had one kind of demographic, young people going out, and this is a must-see film, not because it's just visceral horror, but because there's a wider cultural discussion going on. And what I love about that is, like you pointed out, this movie costs less than $1 million to make, but it's an auteurist vision made by an exciting new filmmaker that really really taps into something that's going on. And, you know, if you're a kid, you listen to your friends talk about this. And so it's become a movement even. Like everybody has to go out and see this movie so they can weigh in on the wider cultural conversation that's happening around this movie. And I love this. I think that's really exciting. And, you know, this is going to be a film when these kids turn 40 or 50, they're going to be like, remember when we all went and saw Obsession? You know, it's great. And I think it's great for the business because can you imagine you're at a Hollywood studio and you're looking at the numbers this movie's putting up for a less than $1 million spend? It's going to make over $100 million. And that's what people want. And then we have another movie coming out next week, which is Backrooms, which is made for a little bit more money, but is derived from the YouTube space. I think it's an exciting time for young filmmakers, especially young horror filmmakers. And not everyone's gonna have a winning movie, but man, this movie deserves it.
I'm gonna push back a little bit on this. I don't know that you can call a movie as a cultural zeitgeist movie or say it's the must-see movie when it hasn't even made $100 million. Like I do think, and I'm excited to see it. And I think, like I said, I'm the one who's telling you this is absolutely historical numbers, But I do want us to keep it in context that it is still a movie that has yet to even reach $100 million.
Well, it's a zeitgeist movie for one demographic. It's
sure,
not a four-quadrant.
I agree with that. I can go with that.
It's not a four-quadrant movie.
Yeah.
Kids aren't, it's not for families.
Again, it's just the power of the word of mouth, though.
Yeah.
The power of the word of mouth, because that's really what's been propelling it. Because while I've been giving kudos to the marketing budget, it's not like they've had a $75 million marketing budget.
No,
they've done great work with a limited budget, and really relied on that word of mouth. And I couldn't be more happy for it. I'm excited to see it tomorrow. I've been excited to see this for
You're
months
gonna
ever
have
since we
fun.
saw the trailer. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? This is the first time I can recall that a movie, without having significant theater count change, has actually jumped up 30% from weekend 1 to weekend 2. This does not happen, but it just happened with this little horror film that cost about $1 million to make. Whatever you guys think about this, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? There's a lot of big movies still to come this year. And one of the ones that I'm particularly interested in is Supergirl. I love the casting in it. I loved Superman. I thought Superman was great. It had one of the highest audience scores of any comic book film ever. It was just a magnificent film. And I love the way they introduced Supergirl at the end. I've really liked the trailers. I was admittedly not thrilled with the presentation they just gave us at CinemaCon, but that notwithstanding, I'm looking forward to seeing it. The question for a lot of people has been, how is the movie going to do? What kind of numbers are they talking about it racking up here? And the early projection right now has come out from Box Office Theory. And they're putting the number anywhere between about $50 million to $65 million opening weekend. Now, one of the things when people would ask me, 6 months ago about how do you think Supergirl is going to do? Do you think it'll be bigger than Superman? I would say, no. Superman is still Superman. Supergirl is a secondary derivative character. Of course, you can't expect Supergirl to be making the same numbers. And don't forget, as Variety just put it today, Peter Safran and James Gunn are still dealing with the damage done by the DCEU. It's still a thing. We've only had one movie since the DCEU. So to think that Supergirl was going to come out and be some massive blockbuster was always kind of a fairy tale. But how strong could it be? Well, to put it into a little bit of context here, if it does open, let's say between $50 and $65 million, it could be a little bit higher, could be a little bit lower. But if it comes out even just $2 or $3 million higher than that, take a look at this number. We're talking about Supergirl. These are the last 5 DCEU movies that they ever put out. The last 5 they ever put out were Aquaman 2, Blue Beetle, The Flash, Shazam 2, and of course, everybody's favorite Black Adam were the last ones to come out. Even if it only comes in at, let's say, I don't know, 56, 57, 58 million dollars of an opening. That literally beats every single of the last 5 ones except for Black Adam. And if it does come in at the top of its range, Supergirl will have a higher opening weekend than the last 5 movies of the DCU. As big as Superman? No, but you'd be foolish to think that it would. So the big question is going to be, and Rob, I know we sound like a broken record player when we talk about this. The big question is going to be, what kind of legs does it have? And that's all going to be based on how good the movie is.
Yeah.
If the movie is as good as it has potential of being, then it's going to be profitable. I mean, right now we're looking at this film needs to come in a little over Black Adam. This film needs to come in around 400 to 410 million to break even. An opening of, say, 55, 60, you'd like to see it higher than that to get to the break-even mark, but it's certainly within shot. If the movie is as good as it has the potential to be, it'll easily clear that 400 million. If the movie is disappointing, then it may struggle to get to that mark a little bit. So I look at these numbers because I've seen some other outlets writing about, oh my gosh, like some people are tracking it at 65 million, some people tracking it at 60 million, whatever. And people like these outlets writing, oh my gosh, this would be a terrible opening weekend for Supergirl. Honestly, my opinion is then you're a terrible analyst. Then you are not reading the tea leaves here. Because if you ever thought it was even remotely possible that Supergirl was going to open to $100 million, a B-level derivative character, then I don't know what to tell you. You're simply insane. Like, yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy had a magnificent opening, but we talk about Guardians of the Galaxy because of what an exception that was. If Supergirl can come out as only the second new DCU movie and have a still show marked improvement and healing and recovery from the damage done by the DCEU and still have a bigger opening weekend than the past 5 DCEU movies, then I call that a win. Like, because who would have ever thought that a Supergirl movie would do better than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Black Adam? Who would have ever thought that? You know, if you'd asked that question prior to Black Adam coming out, nobody, absolutely nobody. Who would have ever thought after the $1 billion run of Aquaman saying a Supergirl movie would open bigger than Aquaman 2? Nobody would have ever thought that. After I thought the first Shazam movie was a charming delight. I really love the first Shazam movie. Who would have thought that saying that a sequel to that beloved movie, that a Supergirl movie would make more opening weekend than that would? I don't think a lot of people. I think a bunch of people would probably guess it might make more than Blue Beetle. So sure enough, it's going to. So yeah, listen, I'm telling you, if there's anybody out there looking at these numbers, and by the way, it may not open to $60 million. It might open to 70. It might open to 75. It could very well open to 35. Then these are two very different conversations we're going to have. But what I'm saying right now, we're going to have to wait and see how it actually does, because I'm not really sure how it's going to do opening weekend. I'm iffy on how the whole marketing campaign has gone. But if it does, say, open to Black Adam numbers at, say, 65, 66, 67 million, if it does, with all the damage the DCEU had done to the DC brand, if a Supergirl movie opens bigger than the previous 5 DCEU films, and you paint that as anything other than a success, I have to question how good you are as an analyst. Now, at the end of the day, you still want to see if this movie can make money and be profitable. We're going to have to see the movie before we can make any guesses about that. Maybe it's beloved and everybody goes back a ton like they did with Obsession. Maybe it falls like a cliff like Mortal Kombat 2 did. And by the way, I had a good time with Mortal Kombat 2, but its box office dropped off a cliff after the first weekend. We're going to have to wait and see. I don't know how good the movie's going to be. I don't know how bad the movie's going to be. We'll have to wait and see. All I'm saying, Rob, right now is if it actually does, as a Superman derivative character, the second DCU movie, if it does open in that $65 million range, I think they got to take that as a win. I don't know. You see these numbers, you see all this stuff being thrown around. How do you take it?
Well, I think it really depends, as always, how good the movie is. You know, I think we're judging it like you and I think we're a little underwhelmed by the scene they showed at CinemaCon, but that really doesn't mean anything. I mean, seeing it in context and seeing it with the rest of the movie, I might like the movie quite a lot. It really comes down to the film, and I'm leaning on the side of the movie itself doing better than people expect, because I think that character of Superman, once again, it appeals to females. She's strong, she's sassy, and I think we never really take into consideration what an audience that might turn out for a new Frozen movie, when they turn out to a superhero movie, what that can mean, especially if the superhero movie's good. You know, and I would think this movie, I'm going to lean in, having not seen it. Everybody comes back and said, well, you said Superman was going to do this or that. I haven't seen Supergirl. I don't know if it's going to be good or not. I'm talking into a vacuum here. But I think that I think the movie's going to surprise people. I think it's going to do better than they might expect, or better than our own movie pundit world thinks. Only because I think that audiences want to see a movie like this, especially female audiences. But time will tell.
You know, there's a little bit of a Travis Knight-ism to this too, Rob, because Gillespie is directing it. And I love his work. I think he's a really talented director. Mm-hmm. He's created films that have won Oscars. He's a tremendous director. And so, again, I don't know what we're going to get out of this. I really don't. I don't know if it's going to be as charming and fun and delightful as Superman was. I don't know if it's going to be, you know, as disappointing as, you know, some other projects that maybe we won't mention right now. But I'm just saying, if it opens to these numbers, I think that's as good as they can expect. And we'll have to see how that all kind of unvolves. All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? What kind of opening numbers are you expecting for Supergirl? Are people going to be going out to see it? Remember, this is a B-level Superman derivative character, and it's only the second film in the DCU. What are you expecting it to do? Do you think it's going to be any good? Right now, I think it's a coin toss. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we still have a couple of things we got to talk about, including Warner Brothers isn't the only big thing in the movie world up for sale. Apparently, IMAX is putting itself up for sale, and there's already some whispers about who might be buying the screen giant. See what I did there? Screen giant IMAX. Anyway, also, Mandalorian and Grogu officially opens to about $81 million, now officially making it the lowest opening weekend ever for a Disney-era Star Wars film. But does that really mean all that much? Maybe yes, maybe no. We're going to talk about those things and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to take a minute and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show, our friends at Pocket Hose and Hims. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Pocket Hose. Guys, I'm excited to tell you about the world's #1 expanding garden hose and their brand new product, the Pocket Hose Ballistic. As you guys can imagine, I'm not exactly gentle with my gear. I drag hoses across concrete over the pool, yank them around corners. I even coil and uncoil them all the time to put them in my camper van when I go out on my movie meetups. And generally speaking, a lot of them don't last. But the Pocket Hose Ballistic has been a totally different story for me. It's incredibly durable, super lightweight, and just makes the whole job easier. One of my favorite things is how simple it is to use. You turn the water on, it expands. Turn it off, it shrinks right back down to pocket size. And it's reinforced with a liquid crystal polymer, the same kind of material used in bulletproof vests. Plus, it comes with the pocket pivot, which gives you 360-degree rotation at the spigot so it moves with you instead of fighting against you. And now, for a limited time, when you purchase a new Pocket Hose Ballistic, you'll get a free 360-degree rotating pocket pivot and a free thumb drive nozzle. Just text Campea to 64,000. That's CAMPEA to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Text Campea to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. Guys, we want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's video, Hims. You know, one of the hardest things about trying to lose weight is just figuring out what actually works. Because we've seen them all. There are a million trends, diets, and gimmicks out there, and honestly, it can get overwhelming. And that's why weight loss by Hims really stands out. Hims now offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill at its lowest price ever, and the Wegovy pen. With Wegovy at Hims, lose up to 20% or more of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite and eat less, so success is within reach. Plus, Wegovy is the first ever and only GLP-1 available in a pill for weight loss, so there are no needles needed. And the process is extremely convenient. Everything happens online. You connect with a licensed provider who determines if treatment is right for you, and if prescribed, your medication gets delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. Ready to reach your goals? Visit hims.com/Campea to get a personalized, affordable plan that gets you. That's HIMS.com/Campea. hims.com/Campea. Based on advertised cash price for 30-day supply of medication only. Membership required, fee not included, and billed separately. Weight loss by Hims is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit hims.com. And thank you to our friends at Pocket Hose and Hims for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this. You know, IMAX cinemas has kind of become the gold standard for what you gotta see the biggest and best movies in. Now, I love IMAX. My personal favorite screen is still Prime Dolby Cinemas. Those are still my favorite, but I do love a great IMAX experience. As a matter of fact, when Christopher Nolan put early tickets on sale for his new upcoming film, The Odyssey, it was just for IMAX screens, and they sold out immediately. They've done the same thing with Dune 3, IMAX screens. Movies are fighting over getting their IMAX screens. For Dune's Day, Dune beat out Doomsday to get the IMAX screens. Everybody wants the IMAX screens. Well, maybe they want more than the screens. Maybe they want the whole company, because big reports coming out of the major trades, including the Hollywood Reporter, are now stating that IMAX has already begun talking to potential buyers who may want to buy IMAX, which is a Toronto-based company, I believe, good Canadian company, to take it over. And who could be taking over IMAX? Well, the Hollywood Reporter says there's two different trains of thought. They say this: David Joyce at Seaport Research Partners points to Cinemark or AMC theaters as potential buyers, so two movie theater chains. But Wedbush analyst Alicia Reese is pointing to the main players being Apple, Sony, and Netflix. So, and there could be others as well. There could be others as well. So, all right, there's a whole bunch to unpack here. First of all, the whole idea about IMAX, which is at its most profitability right now than it's ever been, which I guess to them thinking this is the best time to sell. When we're soaring high, our profitability is great. We're never going to be worth more than we are right now. Maybe that's what they're thinking. Now's the time to sell. Whether that's a smart move or not, I don't know. We'll leave that for another time a little bit later. What's more interesting to me is the notion of who could end up actually buying Netflix or buying IMAX.
Yeah.
So the ones I don't want to get it are the movie theater chains. I don't want Cinemark and I don't want AMC to get it, because what I don't want is for IMAX to become exclusively tied to one theater chain. That doesn't necessarily mean it would. Like, let's say Cinemark gets IMAX. They may still license out the IMAX screens to AMC and Regal and everything like that. And it's probably what would happen, but there would clearly be some conflict of interest there, right? But so it's a possibility. It could happen and it could work. I just see some potential entanglements and some, again, conflicts of interest and maybe some shady stuff, but the movie theater chains. The other ones, though, talking about Apple, Sony, and Netflix, the two that excite me the most are Apple and Netflix. And the reason those two excite me the most is because I am a movie theater experience guy, okay? Movie theaters are my church. Movie going is the greatest thing in the world to me. And I love the movie going experience. The reason I love the idea of Apple or Netflix getting IMAX is it takes these outlier companies to the theatrical world. I mean, obviously Apple is playing with the theatrical world. Netflix is more and more playing with the theatrical world. That's all good. But if one of these two major players who have incredibly deep pockets were to buy IMAX, it's kind of like a king marrying off his daughter to a rival kingdom. It just creates bonds. And if you can tie Apple and get Apple even more invested in the theatrical experience, if you can get Netflix to be even more tied now and more incentivized to promote and engage and grow the theatrical experience, I think that's a win for everybody who's a fan of movie going. I mean, the worst thing I think in the world is for Netflix to move away from the theatrical experience. They are clearly, Rob, we've talked about this a lot. We've seen Netflix more and more making more and more overtures to becoming more and more tied to theatrical. And that's a good thing. Apple as well. But if you could actually put a ring on it, right? If you could actually make a solid, tangible tie between a Netflix or an Apple with the movie going experience and have one of them actually own the IMAX format, I think that's a big win. Some potential downfalls, yes, but I think the potential upside of that is just, listen, if you get Netflix to become a major theatrical player, then the more major theatrical players we have, the better for the industry as a whole. So am I against Cinemark getting IMAX? I'm not against it. Am I against AMC getting IMAX? I'm not against it. But I just don't think those are the preferable options. I think if you're a movie fan and you're a fan of the movie-going experience, I think something like an Apple, I think something like a Netflix owning IMAX becomes very interesting because it brings more major players into the game. So anyway, Rob, that's just kind of my two-bit armchair analysis of the whole situation. What do you think about this whole idea of IMAX putting itself up for sale? And what do you think about the potential suitors you're hearing listed out here?
Well, look, I understand why they would want to sell. They make more money, everybody cashes out. And the problem with, I think, IMAX is it's not necessarily a huge growth industry. It's not going to suddenly make 100, 200, 300% more money than it's currently making. But IMAX is kind of unto itself. I think if they're going to sell to Apple or Netflix, Apple and Netflix are not distributors. They're not exhibition players. And I don't think they want to be. I think if someone's going to buy IMAX, you need experienced exhibition people that are going to buy it, so they make sure that the IMAX experience is preserved. Because one of the problems that I see with modern moviegoing, and we've seen this a lot, you saw it last night, is, you have to treat the movie-going experience like it's, as you always say, an experiential event, which means that you don't ever show a movie to your customers that's too dim. And IMAX has a certain expectation where when you go into an IMAX theater, you're going to see the proper luminance. You're going to hear thunderous sound. And you need people. And not only that, IMAX has another part, a technological part, where they're working directly with filmmakers like Christopher Nolan to create new cameras and new equipment and new ways to sell the experience, to make that theater going experience special. They also have a home entertainment portion where they've got certain equipment is deemed IMAX worthy. So I just hope if anyone's going to buy it, they have a special team of people that are going to make IMAX their life's ambition. Otherwise, I fear it will die on the vine because people aren't going to care about it as much as the IMAX team currently in place cares. That's my only worry.
I mean, one of the things you got to keep in mind, though, is like, I remember IMAX is not distribution. IMAX is exhibition.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's three real players when it comes to, like, for our audience to understand, there's three real players when it comes from a movie getting onto a screen we watch. There's the production company, right? The producers, the studios that make the movies. There's the distribution arm that then takes the movies and gets them onto screen somewhere for people to see. And then there's exhibition, which are those screens. That's AMC, that's Cinemark, that's IMAX. So I think something like an Apple and a Netflix could easily get into the exhibition stuff because they're still leaving the distribution to the distributors. They would then have to just work with distribution to arranging what gets on the screens. My one fear, Rob, here would be my one worry when it comes to something like Apple or Netflix or a Sony or a Disney or an individual production company getting IMAX. My one worry would be that you would get to the point where only Apple movies get put on IMAX, or only Sony movies get put on IMAX, or only Netflix movies get put on IMAX. So I think that's one of the potential downsides here. Hopefully that if they do get it, there's, an inherent contractual trust that you have to still operate IMAX as IMAX, still take the highest bidders, still be willing to put whoever's movies on your screens if those are the ones that make more sense. But the downside I see is that whoever buys it tries to make it exclusive. And that's at least one thing that you wouldn't have to worry about if Cinemark or an AMC got IMAX. Again, I think they would just put some things in place. Do you think that would be a potential downfall, or can you see?
No, I think it might be a down. I do. I think because what you're asking for, unless you have people that are experienced exhibition people, you're asking a company to start a division that they don't currently have. And there's a lot of, it takes a while to ramp up and learn what people are doing and how to do it properly. Now, that's not saying they couldn't do that, but the thing about IMAX is it's kind of unto itself. It's unique. And I think the people that really currently work there are true believers. And you don't want to ever have a place. If there's an IMAX theater where the brightness level isn't good and you have one person go into that theater or a group of people to watch a big blockbuster on its opening night and it doesn't deliver the experience, that's really bad for the company because that's all it does. So you can't have somebody that's going to buy this that's going to make it a secondary concern. And that's all that I would be worried about.
Well, and it's beyond.
Well, I agree.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's beyond just the theaters. IMAX develops cameras, lenses.
Yeah.
They're one of the few that are working in film stock still. So sending things out to like photo cam. And I mean, it's incredible. The flatbeds they still use. It's like the old school flatbeds when they're cutting the actual, 70 millimeter. I forget how many perfs that is on that. Rob probably knows off. But, they're literally
15 per 70.
Yeah, and they're literally cutting and pasting on these. There's a huge infrastructure for this stuff. So it's not just the distribution wing of it.
Which is something where something like an Apple, like if Apple bought IMAX, I mean, they're a big technology company. I mean, they could put a lot of money into R&D and developing new technologies. But it's wild. I can't remember. I think it was 60 Minutes did a feature on Oppenheimer, not Oppenheimer, the Odyssey. And
yeah, when they talked to Christopher Nolan, they interviewed Christopher Nolan.
Where they're talking to Christopher Nolan, and they, how they're editing it. This is so archaic and caveman-like. They literally edited the Odyssey in this room with this guy with this big spool of film. Literally, that's the cut, and literally cutting the film and then taking a piece of tape and taping the two pieces of film together for where the edit is. I'm like, holy crap! It's like watching the Flintstones.
It's old school flatbeds, except these flatbeds are massive.
Yeah.
They're massive compared to the old school flatbeds because the spools are like hundreds, thousands of pounds with a full weighted spool on there. So it's crazy.
It is crazy seeing how you do color correction. Like today, you take it into DaVinci Resolve or you take it into whatever these things and color correct it. No, you know how they're color correcting it? They're literally taking a strip of film with a different tone and putting it over the film. And it's like, I just can't believe they're making a movie this way, but I'm sure it's going to end up being an interesting kind of presentation. But so, it's angle. I'm glad you brought that up, Jonathan, because the angle of understanding that IMAX is also kind of in a way, a technology company.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe somebody with the deep pockets of a Netflix or an Apple or something like that could be interesting in there as well. So, and then hopefully, of course, whoever, to go to what Rob was saying, whoever buys IMAX, you buy the company and you own it, but you keep its infrastructure, like you keep its executives and you keep the people who run these things. And hopefully that'll be the case. But anyway, look, at the end of the day, it needs to be mentioned that IMAX in the past 10 years or so, on a couple of occasions, have floated the idea publicly of maybe them putting themselves up for sale. And they never did. That could happen here. We could have a situation here where IMAX is talking to potential buyers and saying they're interested in selling, but at the end of the day, maybe they don't sell at all. So we'll just wait and see what happens. Question. Oh, go ahead, Jonathan.
I would say just a quick analogy, only because I keep seeing people saying, no, because Apple won't care about the infrastructure. Guys, that's like saying we're going to buy Ford Motor Company, but we don't really care about the manufacturing part of Ford Company. We just want to focus on the car dealerships where Ford sells their cars. You have to have the infrastructure. It has to all be together because they're the only ones who make IMAX to put on IMAX screens.
All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? IMAX is floating the idea that they may be up for sale, and several industry insiders are pointing to theater chains like Cinemark and AMC and bigger companies like Apple, Netflix, and Sony are potential buyers for it. What do you think is going to happen here? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this. The Mandalorian and Grogu is now in theaters. I have seen it twice. I'm about to see it 3 more times. Lucky me. But it is in theaters. And you know what? I don't mind the film. I don't mind it. It's okay. It has its really bad points. It has its positive points. But what they were kind of fearing would happen has now in fact happened. You guys know that the lowest opening weekend ever for a Disney era Star Wars film was Solo, a Star Wars story. That opened to $84 million. Well, the opening weekend numbers for The Mandalorian and Grogu are now in. And now The Mandalorian and Grogu is officially the lowest opening weekend in Disney era Star Wars film, as it is reportedly made over the 3-day weekend, $81 million, making it just slightly less, but less nonetheless than Solo, a Star Wars story, by about $3 million. Now, it should be mentioned, though, its worldwide numbers for its opening entry are actually a little bit above what Solo: A Star Wars Story was, but I believe it's also opened in more markets than Solo: A Star Wars Story did initially. Regardless, it is what it is. How will this movie actually end up doing? Well, I think there's a couple of things we have to keep in mind. And by the way, I should address this quickly. I see some people in the live chat saying, no, John, I read in Variety that it made $100 million. No. What you're reading is that because this is a 4-day weekend, the Memorial Day weekend, its 4-day total was $100 million.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about the official opening weekend, we talk about this all the time, every time there's a long weekend. The official opening weekend is still the official 3-day. And its official 3-day opening weekend is $81 million. You don't tack on the Monday, just like other movies don't get to tack on the Monday. So yes, for 4 days, it was $100 million, but its official opening weekend is $81 million, just to clear that up. At any rate, a couple things to keep in mind here. If almost any movie opened with an $80 million opening weekend, we would be talking about how on earth did it achieve such an amazing win? But because it's Star Wars, we look at it and say, it's pedantic. No.
Yeah, to your point, Devil Wears Prada 2 was 70, I want to say 76, 77. And we were like, whoa.
Yeah, and that was an amazing number for that. Now, granted, Mandalorian and Grogu was more expensive to make, absolutely. I think the grand total budget, they spent a lot on marketing. They spent a lot of money on marketing Mandalorian and Grogu. And I think the total production plus marketing costs came in around $300 million, which is still fairly reasonable. Like for a Star Wars film with a big, extensive, robust marketing campaign, that means this movie needs to come in around $450 million, $460 million to break even. I think it's doable because, Rob, in as much as I didn't love the film, there are certainly elements of it that I really quite liked and a number of elements that I really didn't like. But despite the fact that it's gotten mixed critical reaction, the audience reaction has been fairly positive. Like last I checked, it was in the high 80s.
Yeah.
And I think this thing could have some legs. And despite the fact that it is now officially the lowest opening ever for a Disney era Star Wars film, I still think it could end up being profitable depending on the word of mouth and how well it holds out there. Because like I said, right now it's already it's roughly made back just its production budget of about $165 million. So it still has a long way to go, but I think it's possible that it could get there. I think at the end of the day, we may not be looking at this movie in terms of it being a failure financially, like we do when we look back at Solo: A Star Wars Story, but that remains to be seen. Anyway, Rob, the movie made just over $80 million on its opening weekend. Do you think it can get to that break even and profitability point? Are you surprised it came in where it did? What are your thoughts on it?
I'm really not surprised about where it's at because as we've talked about for weeks, if not months, the show really was an extension of the TV series. I was hoping, we talked about last week, that it would be more like what we got when X-Files Fight the Future came out. 5 seasons of a TV show, then it jumped to the big screen. It felt different. Characters are recognizable, but the feel of the movie felt like a movie. And while this did deliver some big screen, great vistas, and some great imagery, the overall story, it still felt like we were watching television. Because it didn't have this kind of storytelling that a movie sets up, especially. And look, if you like that stuff, there's a lot of things that made me smile in the movie, and I was certainly entertained by a lot of it. But I really wanted more from it. I wanted them to take more chances, make it a little bit different. And I think it delivers the goods if you want to watch an innocent, sort of non-offensive Star Wars movie. You get to go dip your toes back into that galaxy far, far away. And I think if that's what you're looking for, it definitely delivers. But is that enough in our theatrical environment? I mean, I think if you're gonna take a television series and put it on the big screen, you owe the audience something that's significantly different than what they're going to get back home. Otherwise, why should they turn out for it when you know that it's going to show up on Disney Plus in 3 months? Why should people go to the theater? And I think Maybe
you go
maybe
hope to see a good movie, but
yeah, but I mean, but this isn't. This is fighting the fact that it's a TV show, and it still feels too much like a TV show.
You know what drove me to your point, without running the risk of giving away a little bit of a spoiler, but I'm going to try to avoid that. Here, after watching it for a second time, here was my biggest issue with Mandalorian. The movie didn't know what it was about.
Right.
Because
Exactly
you get the opening crawl, although it's not a crawl anymore. Now it's just text on the screen. And it tells you, here's the Mandalorian. This is what it's about. But it's only about that for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Then it becomes about something else. Okay, yeah, in the opening crawl, we said, here's the scenario. Mando, well, you guys know this from the trailers. Mando is hunting down former Imperials. Okay, there we go. This is the thing about Mando hunting down the former Imperials. We see Sigourney Weaver in the trailer saying, this isn't about revenge. This is about stopping another war. By the way, I love Sigourney Weaver. I worship Sigourney Weaver. This was the laziest paycheck she's ever collected in her life.
100%.
Anyway, that aside, I love you, Sigourney. I really, really do.
They gave her nothing to play, to be fair.
Yeah. But then that's only what the movie's about for like 10 minutes. Then it's, okay, thanks for doing that. But now we have this. Oh, so now the movie's about something else. Now it's about Mando has to do this. And then that's the story for about 20 minutes. And it's like, oh, no. Now Mando has to do this. Oh, so now the movie's about him getting this guy. Okay. And then that gets accomplished. Okay, now the movie's about this. Now Mando's got to go do this. It's like, what? Wait a minute. We have literally changed the plot 4 times. And in that, Rob, that's the way to me that this really felt like it was just a TV show. Because this was like the first part was, the first 2 episode arc. And then the third episode. And then the 4 and 5 episode arc was this. And it never established a sense of identity for itself. I never got a sense of when you break the movie into like 4 or 5 different stories, you don't get the audience engaged in the story and building up to the ultimate climax of the story. Because in Mandalorian, again, without giving away any spoilers, the climax was only for a story that was only about 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
In the movie, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of the smaller issues with Mandalorian can be drawn back to that. Now, having seen the movie twice,
you're about to see it more.
And I'm about to see it 3 more times. Let me say this though. I think the highs of the movie are quite high. Like there's a bar fight scene in this movie that I think is great. I still think the opening 17, 18 minutes is really entertaining. And color me shocked, Rob, but you know who I really liked? Rada the Hutt. I didn't think I would.
He's the best character in the film.
Wow.
Because he's the only character in the movie.
Yeah, yes. He had the most interesting backstory, a little expository, and like there's not a lot of nuance there, but still, I did not think I would like Rada the Hutt. And I actually end up like, there was no need in the world for Jeremy Allen White to do the voice of him, but whatever. I actually really like that character. And then there's a character you see in one of the trailers that Mando is having like a sword fight with. There's a new bounty hunter in town. I thought that was a pretty interesting character. The little Babu freaks, I thought they would annoy me.
The Anzellans.
They did not annoy me. They were
great.
They were pretty charming. There's this big section of the movie though, where it's just Grogu. And I found that snore inducing. Like I found that really boring. And again, like some of the things like, wait a minute, you said this, but it was this. That makes no sense. Like there were several of those throughout the movie. So again, for me, Rob, at the end of the day, this was not a great Star Wars movie.
No.
But it was harmless enough. And I got enough enjoyment out of it that when I said in my out of theater review kind of stands, I don't regret that I saw it. Do I regret that I have to see it 5 times? I don't know. Ask me that next week.
If only Masters of the Universe was coming out earlier, you could have mixed it up.
Dude, get this. True story. So, my buddy Ryan is making the drive, so I don't have to do all the driving by myself. Thank God Ryan's here. And we went to Vegas first to get some adjustments made to the van because the company that makes my van is in Vegas. So we stopped there. We drove 11 hours from Vegas to Denver. So pulled in around 1 or 2 in the morning, got up, drove from Denver to Casey, Illinois, and that took us 14 hours. Then we drove from Casey, Illinois to Columbus, did our first movie meetup, and now we're on our way to New York and then Boston and then Toronto. And, so here's what I find. One of our last movie meetup tours, the main movie we were seeing was Tron Ares. And I didn't love the movie, but I had to see it like 4 times. And what I found was watching the movie back to back to back to back, my brain already knows the things I don't like about the movie. And so I'm just kind of able to focus on my second and third viewing on the things that I do like in it. And so I actually found watching Mandalorian and Grogu the second time, I actually had a little bit of a better experience because I already know the things I don't like, right? I already know. And so when those things start happening on screen, I just kind of tune out and then I just enjoy the parts that I do like. So I'm hoping that continues for the screenings in New York, Boston, and Toronto. Whether it does or does not, we will see. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What did you think about these opening weekend numbers? Listen, $81 million opening is still an $81 million opening, but technically speaking, that does make it come in under Solo, a Star Wars story, which means that The Mandalorian and Grogu is the lowest opening weekend ever for a Disney era Star Wars film. Do you have a chance to see it yet? If so, what did you think about it? Did you agree with the critics and kind of mixed, a little bit mixed like me? Or are you more like what a lot of the audience ratings are, which are really quite high? Whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. And all right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day and putting up with my surroundings inside the van. Again, currently in the wonderful little town of Washington, Pennsylvania, not far from where the Pittsburgh Penguins play, I understand. We will, of course, be back again tomorrow. And for those of you in the New York area coming out to our movie meetup, I'll see you guys tomorrow night. I want to thank, of course, our technical producer running the show from in Burbank, California, Jonathan Boyko. Thanks, Jonathan.
Oh, got the intro on there still. See you guys later.
Of course, writer, director, producer extraordinaire, Robert Meyer Burnett.
Great to be here, John, and safe travels to you. And again, to all of our men and women in uniform. Remember you guys.
And thank you most of all to you guys. There have been thousands of you guys in the live chat doing this. And I love even being on the road, watching and reading your guys' comments in there. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.